So, welcome to the parsha, Netzvim VaYelekh. They're intimately connected in the big picture. One starts with, we stand before God, we stand. And the other is, Moshe went. You can think about it, I'll pull it together for you in a minute. So we start with we stand. And it's a collective statement. So it's talking about what appears to be all of Am Israel, but really it's talking about the whole world. It's very clear, those who are here and those who are yet to be here, and it's really a covenant with the whole world. Not that people are quite ready for it yet, but that's what it's actually talking about. That's the we stand part. Now, that's a more kind of social kind of discussion. We really, from a spiritual point of view, what does it mean to be we stand? So it means that if you're willing to stand before God, you're willing to stand before Hashem, it means a commitment. That's what it means. And it's not a halfway commitment. It's a full-on commitment. That's the other part that makes it very, very important. It's a total commitment to be one with God. So that's taking it to a certain level. And Hashem said, Moses is saying, well, and if you're not ready now, here's what you need to do. This is the way to walk to bring this to happen. And most likely you're not going to be able to hold on to this for a while. But they did for a few hundred years, actually. Then you will be exiled. You will be purified. And the good news is, not that he put it that way, you will come back and you will be forgiven. And the covenant remains unbroken. And it will still happen. The Messianic time will still happen. That's significant. So, historically, that's exactly what happened. They made it for a few hundred years. Then they were exiled from the land because of their actions, spread throughout the world, and the message was, fine, you're spread throughout the world, and according to prophecy, you'll all be brought back. So in 1948, after 2,000 years, approximately, Israel became a state, and the door opens to be brought back. Not that people weren't coming back in the 1830s, but I'm talking about big step. So that is real prophecy unfolding. It's an unheard of event that any group who's been dispersed all over the place, which is how you destroy groups, right? This is what the U.S. government did to the Native Americans. Okay, it's a very clear thing, and that's exactly what they did to the tribes. Dispersed. No cultures ever survived that, except this one. Okay, because it's prophecy. So, okay, now that's another level. Now we're talking, besides that sociological, tribal, we're now talking about us standing before God. And what Moses is saying is, you need to stand before God in full attention. No diversions about our worship. Well, what does that mean? Well, a lot of idol worship was going on in those days. The power of Baal, the forces of darkness, stuff that we're seeing in the governments today, more European and American. All kinds of sexual, occult actions going on, or voodoo or all these dark forces. That is a distraction, but that's also how people lose, their focus on what's going on. It is really happening just like it happened in Babylon. Around the time of Hammurabi, where, in a sense, the energetics of Babylon are being activated somewhat. Okay, fine. What the message is, don't get distracted by that. That's what the message is. Okay. Then the next level of distraction, and it talks about it very specifically, is, everything's relative. I can be at peace. I don't really have to follow the cosmic laws. I think people have heard that lately. Okay? They talk about it specifically. People say, well, I can be at peace and do whatever I want. I just have my own set of rules. What does it say? It says those people, I'm being mild here, those people aren't going to do so well. Okay? Because it's a mental delusion that separates you from the divine. So we have all the social chaos, out of worship, and the mental delusion, and it really comes down to out of worship is anything that diverts your attention consciously or unconsciously. Anything that diverts you from being focused on the divine as the main point of life. It's a very strong, very straightforward message, is that we need to be, as Moshe is saying, be totally focused on the one. Don't get diverted here and there and give attention and energy. You have to take care of whatever you have to take care of, but that can't be your primary focus. Your primary focus needs to be on God, on Hashem. So think about it. I'm going to repeat it again because that's the big message. Your primary focus needs to be on Hashem at every moment of your life. And that's really part of standing before Hashem. And there are levels of standing before. But the key word is teshuvah, which means return to God. That's the key word, teshuvah. But there's levels of returning to God. Well, one is following the basic roadmap, the 10 speakings, which most of the world isn't doing at this point. So it seems very fundamental, maybe to people listening and sitting in the street, but it's not what's happening out there. All these different, we do our own thing, and we want power, we want this, we want that, and we can do whatever we want. So that's a big deal. But that's only level 1. And I'm above it all, the details don't really matter, and all the rationalizations. Now, that's the minimum we can do to stand before God. The minimum. Now, the second level of that is opening our hearts to the divine. Opening our hearts to the divine. Now, that's very essential. And then they talk about your heart will become circumcised, meaning the cover over your heart that blocks you from that divine connection will be removed. That's a deeper level of that connection with the divine. Okay? And it's a deeper level of standing before the divine. That's important too. Obviously very important. The next level, and it says in Devarim 30.1, okay, open your heart. Okay. And then the next level is merging with God. It's focusing on God. First you open your heart, and then it's a movement towards becoming one with God. Those are 2 steps that are critical in terms of standing before God. So okay, now we've kind of looked at that level, which is really a spiritual evolutionary level. First, we followed the basics of how to be, the 10 speakings, and then we begin to open our heart, make the heart connection, and finally, David could merging with God. That's what we're talking about. That's at least what I'm talking about when Moses is saying, stand before God. Okay? Now, fundamental to that, and Moses makes that very, very clear, when we make our connection with the divine the primary, the main priority in our life, that's the first move to be able to stand before God. The very first move. God, what's your priority? Now, what is said there, all who choose, you're accepted. It's not a hard membership here. You choose to do that, you're in. Making a big point. This is not like going to the moon. This is not like going to the bottom of the ocean. It's right there before you. Anyone can do this if you choose. You don't have to be a great intellect. You don't have to be, a great devotee. You just have to choose to do it. That's all that's required. It's available to everyone, and whatever way within the larger context. That's a very important message. It's a very broad message. It's available to everyone. Okay, within the limits of following the Dharma, following the way of life, opening your heart to God. It has to start with just making a choice, and then the door opens from there. Okay. And finally, Devi Kudhi God merging with creation, which is the kind of the main point of the whole story. So this is the path that Moshe is sharing with the people. It's the path that is available to everybody. Only you have to make the choice. That's what's so beautiful about it. It's simple. It's straightforward. It's uncomplicated. All it is making the choice. So that's really the essence of standing before God. Okay? Following the way, make the choice, follow the basics, open the heart, and ultimately God merging. That's the key. Now the second aspect is, and Moshe went. Now, he's giving this talk to people on the last day of his life here on earth in that cycle. And he's having a trouble, not with the fact of leaving his body. That's really not a big problem for him. He's having a trouble because he really wants to go into the land of Israel. God's saying no. They have their little argument. And God says, I don't want to hear about it anymore. Okay? You're not going. Done. Now, in that process, the transformation happens for Moshe. He actually surrenders to the will of God. Big deal. Okay? He was maybe 99% already surrendered, but this was the final step for him. And in that transformation, he opens up to a very deep part of spiritual life. I'm going to say it in a simple way, whatever God does is for the best, but it's deeper than that. So he has to accept, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm not going there, and it's somehow waking me up. So he becomes a Merkabah vehicle. So let me explain what the Merkabah is. The Merkabah is the mystical current of the divine. You can call it the breath, metaphorically, the breath of God into the four winds, into the four breaths, which become the four winds. But what it is the Merkabah vehicle is the energetics that takes you as the flow of the divine. It's a very important concept. So he has surrendered enough so that he becomes a Merkabah vehicle in the sense of the Merkabah energy. He has made the final surrender where he's fully surrendered at every level. And he doesn't try to do the will of God, he becomes the will of God. Subtle difference there. He's not doing it from his own ego choice. He is simply the will of God. And that's the next step in his liberation transformation, is to be the will of God, which is different than I am choosing to be the will of God. He simply becomes the will of God. He's no longer trying to enter Gan Eden. He becomes God in Gan Eden. Very, very important here. So the message here, the profound message of his surrender, is he's transformed into a Merkabah vehicle and literally becomes the expression. I'm going to say it because this is all subtle. So we have the energetics of Judah, which is symbolic. Okay, it is that Judah chooses to be the will of God. Okay, in other words, Judah becomes the expression of the divine as he sees it, becomes the unique expression of the divine within himself. The next step of that is you give up the idea that you're the unique expression and you simply become the direct expression of the will of God. There's no you choosing to be a unique expression. It's a subtle difference, but it's huge. And this is the choice that Moshe didn't have to make that choice, but that was the transformation that happened for him. The last beautiful gift in this lifetime that he received from the divine is in that surrender. Instead of going into Israel and getting his ego need met, he becomes incredibly elevated spiritually to the next level, where he simply is the flow of the Merkabah energy. And may everybody be blessed that we can make those choices in our life to stand before Hashem and, like Moses went, to become the flow of the Merkabah energy in the cosmos. Amen. Shalom, shalom, shalom.